What is going on, guys? Nate here again today with another Elder Scrolls 6 focused video. Lately I've had a lot of fun doing these. It gives me an excuse to play and mod Skyrim for a few hours, while at the same time still being able to tell myself I'm being somewhat productive. And you guys seem to be liking them as well. But onto the subject of today's video, which is, can the Elder Scrolls 6 live up to the hype that it's currently generating, and that will only inevitably be growing as we advance closer and closer to its release, 3 to 4 years from now admittedly. My biggest personal concern is that the game will end up very much like Fallout 4 did, a game that I think may get a little bit more criticism than it's entirely due. I mean, I still think it was a pretty good game worth the price. However, just as a result of the very high standards set by its predecessors, them being New Vegas and Fallout 3, games that were remarkably well crafted and simply brilliant titles in my opinion, I found myself very disappointed with Fallout 4 once that honeymoon phase died down a bit. I heard one analogy used on Reddit. Imagine a college student who consistently turns in research papers that are netting A's or A+, and then one day receives a B-. I mean, that grade's by no means terrible, it just didn't match the expectations that its predecessors set, and I think that's the case with Fallout 4. And my fear is a similar sort of result might plague the Elder Scrolls 6, especially when you consider the fact that most people hold Skyrim to an even higher level of praise than any of the Fallout titles. Skyrim in many ways was one of the few titles that not only lived up to massive hype and expectations, but for many people greatly exceeded it. Bethesda created a brilliant, well-crafted world with an unfathomable amount of depth and locations to be explored, story to uncover, with an innovative leveling system that made the game more accessible to a broader audience without alienating the rest of the franchise, gameplay and quests that promoted replayability, all complemented by what is, in my opinion, one of the best soundtracks for a game we've ever seen. Skyrim in many ways defined the standard for what an open-world RPG should be, and one has to wonder if all those marks can ever be hit again. I try not to be cynical here, and imagine Bethesda has learned some pretty major lessons from Fallout 4 regarding what to and not to do. However, I think for any game to be successful, it does require a pretty big level of innovation, things that are new and productive that a game introduces to a franchise. But looking back again at Fallout 4, a game that very much tried to do that, tried to experiment with new things, and most of its quote-unquote innovations or efforts to be different were met with very wide criticism. The voice protagonist, the new dialogue system were largely disliked, the increased emphasis on gunplay rather than RPG elements, the choice to centralize most of the game's factions into a single quest line, they were all widely disliked, and we can't forget settlement mode, which proved to be a completely enjoyable mode that nobody had any problems with whatsoever. My point here is that Bethesda might be a little bit weary to try new things with their next installment, and rightfully so after all the pushback they received after the changes introduced in Fallout 4. Now, there are still some things to be relatively optimistic about, however. Bethesda is expected to release at least 2 major projects before the Elder Scrolls 6. These projects are also said to still stay somewhat true to Bethesda's traditional open-world RPG style. What this entails is that the studio will certainly be able to get a better feel for what works and what doesn't with those games, and will be a more experienced development house as a whole. Bethesda will get to play around and see what works when it comes to adding new things into the game and polishing out some other mechanics, which is definitely a good positive. It all just makes me wonder whether or not Skyrim has set a bar too high for Bethesda to surpass anytime soon, or if the studio does intend to elevate their standards once more. Either way, 2 to 4 years from now, I hope I can review the Elder Scrolls 6 in a positive fashion. You're still gonna be doing this 4 years from now? I hear some of you think at the back of your minds. And to that I say, probably. I fully intend to continue uploading Bethesda content on this channel until I inevitably die of a paper cut or something, because my country can't agree on what healthcare is. Anyway, that is an excellent note to leave off on, so I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, like ratings are always very much appreciated, and definitely leave a comment down below with your thoughts on whether or not the Elder Scrolls 6 is destined to fail to meet the hype, or the exact opposite. Again, guys, thanks for watching. I hope to see you all in my next video. Peace out, everybody.